Je to tak, náš další zahraniční host, Torry Pedersen. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to make a lecture in this wonderful city. Actually, the first time I was in Prague was back in 1984, and I have been here occasionally since then, but I came over the weekend, and I will say that the amount of tourists I meet in Prague these days is probably the best barometer for how the global economy has been developing since 1984. But that's not what I'm here to talking about. I'm going to talk about the digital transformation and the strategy my company is following. And as you can see, when I'm travel, I really like to go by metro. And the picture I show you here is from Hong Kong just a couple of weeks ago. And I was in the metro cab, and I took up my mobile phone, and I took a picture, and everyone I could see in that carriage had a mobile phone. So that's what's really going on, is that mobile going to be the preferred device for consumption of media going forward. I'm working as an editor and a CEO, but I've been in the business for 30 years, and I'm profoundly sort of focusing on the editorial part of the business, and I just want to make clear that journalism is not disrupted by digitization. It's enabled. The ability to tell the stories more immersive, better than ever before is enabled by the digitization. Of course, there are some problems with the business model, but that's another part of the game. I'm working out of Norway. This is the Digital Economy and Society Index from the EU, just to compare Norway to Czech Republic. And as you can see, there are some differences, but when it comes to consume media in digital formats, people do that very much both in Norway and in the Czech Republic. Of course, Norway is really digitally advanced. 87% of people more than 18 years old has a smartphone. 71% are on Facebook every day. 88% use the internet every day. It's a very digitally advanced country. So when I talk to you, I will sort of take my experiences, because what's happening in Scandinavia now will happen in the Czech Republic just down the road, because the digitization, you can't stop it. It will go on and go on and go on. And just to give you an idea of how fast the developments takes place, I have created what I call a Christmas Eve index. And the reason I have chosen Christmas Eve is that on Christmas Eve there is normally no big news. And at least in my family, we behave the same way year after year. So I take away as much distortions as possible. And what you can see is, to my website, back in 2009, only 7% of the traffic was from a mobile phone. Last Christmas Eve, 62% was from a mobile, 17% from a tablet. And this will develop even further. So there is a huge seismic shift going on in the way we consume media, and mobile is sort of getting the upper hand. And what we experienced just now is the third wave of disruption. It started back in the mid-90s with the web browser and the internet, and then what happened then was that you reduced the distribution to zero cost. To reach another customer had no price, actually. But to distribute a newspaper to another customer is quite expensive. But what's really happened and changed the whole game was back in 2007 with the introduction of the smartphone, with made it possible that it takes place. You are always on wherever you are in the world. What's taking place just now is that we are experiencing personalization at scale. And those of you who are really interested in artificial intelligence would know that the term was coined 60 years ago this summer at Dartmouth College over in the US. So artificial intelligence has been around for 60 years, but it's in these days that it really takes hold. And what I think is one of the big problems for the established media industry is that we still do broadcasting. So if I'm in Czech Republic, I think that the newspapers and the media, they tell the same story to an 80-year-old man in Moravia as to a 19-year-old girl in the most chic part of Prague. And the probability that their interests should be congruent is more or less zero. So what we really have to do is to develop the ability to personalize, and I will show you a video of how we are working with this. We hope to launch our minimum viable product in Q4, and this is what we vision about how we should tell stories in a personalized on the mobile phone. Take up the sound, please. If you take the story about what's been going on with the Volkswagen scandal, you can be interested in this from a consumer perspective. You have that car from a financial perspective because the stock value of Volkswagen is going down, or you can be interested in from an environmental perspective. And I should know in beforehand. And why should you read if it's more better to talk to the media via your phone? If that's the best interface, why shouldn't you be able to talk to your media company?
Politiet melder at veien ryddet og biler får passere. Det nok litt kø.
I think you got the idea. The thing is that you have to try to give a personalized offering to your readers. We as media companies are in a position to harvest a lot of data and to utilize it. And I really think that's one of the main things that could make us a favor towards, for instance, Facebook, and I will come deeper into that later on. Actually, what I think is important is if you're able to make yourself a primary news destination, you are better off than if you are not able to do it. And a primary news destination is a destination where people choose to go when they want to check the news. And I show you this. This is some very well-known brands from all over the world. The green one is the percentage of the traffic that's go directly to your website. As you can see, we are doing better than the other ones in this respect. The dark blue one is social, the light blue one is Google, and the gray one is the rest. And it's such important to really make money in the digital arena to be able to be a primary news destination. Because if you are able to attract people to come there, then you are creating a vast inventory of ad space and you will be able to sort of capitalize on your traffic. And there is 4 things that has to be in place to be that primary news destination, and I will just show you quickly this one as well. The traditional media, I'm working in the Schibsted media group, as you probably might have heard about. To the other side are Facebook. We used to focus on content, whereas they focused on user. The media has to focus more on user, and Facebook focus more on content. So we are sort of approaching each other on a rope. We manage the editorial thing. Their newsfeed is totally democratic. That's sort of a problem because it creates a bubble. You probably heard the story about the girl who tried to find out someone who really were jubilant about the Brexit vote in her feed. And he couldn't find anyone because all of her friends was in favor of staying in EU. So she couldn't find any jubilant thing in her Facebook feed from the Brexit part of it. And that's a democratic problem. And that's one of the things that the media really, that's one of the advantages for us towards a totally democratic sort of way to operate a feed. What I believe in is that there is something you really need to know if you're living in the Czech Republic, but below that, you can fertilize your own interests. And if you're able to sort of combine that, that will be good. And then you have the pull and push thing, and local and global. But to be a prime news destination, you have to be the fastest one. You have to be the Usain Bolt of news delivery. And that's the position we have been able to capture in Norway. The majority of the population, at 54% of every Norwegian, go to our website if they want to check out if the world is still standing. And the reason why is that we mostly has been able to deliver the news first, fastest. The other thing is that you have to be live and present, and it doesn't have to be expensive these days. With this equipment, we made 24-hour video TV from the terror attack in Paris, a selfie stick and an iPhone. And it was really good programming. So you have to be live and present. You have to stir emotions. The most dangerous thing for a media company is for the readers to be indifferent to what you publish. Whether they are angry or moved or glad or whatever, that's fine. But if they are indifferent, then you are in a problem. You have to stir emotions, and of course you have to have clear opinions. That's sort of the fundamentals for the whole media. To really be able to create that traffic, we have on an ordinary day, there is 5 million people living in Norway. On an ordinary day, 1.5 million is coming to our smartphone page, smartphone alone. And another million is coming to the desktop and the tablet. So we reach 2.4 million every day during the year. And what I think is important is that you should be agnostic about the news you are covering. To the left is from the terror attack in Paris. It's very easy to understand that that is big news. To the right is Justin Bieber, who has a concert in Oslo, and he left the stage after just one song because a young girl is spilling some water on the stage. And he got very angry and he left. And to the left at that time was our most trafficked day in history, and that to the right was the second most trafficked day in history. And the reason why is that young girls are those who are most profoundly negligent by established media. And young girls are interested in Justin Bieber. And this is so important to understand because people these days, they eat frozen pizza and drink champagne. Maybe even at the same day. They go for a run and take a beer afterwards. And as an American has said, they come for Obama, but they stay for the Kardashians. So you really have to cover the really serious, important democratic things, but you also have to cover pop culture if you are to reach out and be able to penetrate the majority of your nation, which we have been able to do. But it's the fear of missing out. That's FOMO. The fear of missing out is what gets people back often. But you really have to be good at enlightenment and stickiness as well. And I think you have to tell stories in an intriguing way. And I'm just going to show you 2 examples here. And you have to do it on the mobile. This is from a huge fire who eradicated the society on the western coast of Norway. This is the way we tell the story on mobile. With the moving images, people can actually read it, go next. Then they are told how the fire spread. For every 3 minutes, a new house. 2 minutes later, a new house. 4 minutes later, a big fire, how it spread. You can see it's all very short. It's intuitive. It's told in a modern way on the mobile. And then at the end, you can see that the whole society is burned down. All the red one is away. And then you can meet all the people. And you can just navigate with your finger to get their stories. I think you have got a glimpse of how it is. And others, I take another one. We really try to make, I mean, when you do journalism, you either apply to the intellect or to the heart. But the touch phone has created a third thing, the index finger. You have to appeal to the index finger, because that's how the kids are sort of navigating the way. This is a story from all the Norwegians who perished during the World War II, and you can see, you get all the, we tell it in an intriguing, immersive way. We put a lot of energy into it. You cannot just dump something onto the mobile. It has to be thought of and developed for the mobile. So this is the development that has been going on. In the mid-90s, people come directly, then come search, social media. Today, you really have to have a strategy to distribute your content, even if you are a prime news destination. The BuzzFeed, of course, they get 80% of the traffic outside of BuzzFeed. They have taken it to the other extreme. And here there is big differences between the different demographics. The young ones, the trailing millennials up until 25, the majority of them get their news from distributed content. Whereas those baby boomers over there, they go to a website or another place. And we are lucky. I think we get just 4% of our total traffic from Facebook. That doesn't mean that we don't have a Facebook strategy. And I will show you one of our biggest success.
The man of the toupee. The man of the toupee. I don't wear a toupee.
Yes, I believe it is.
I don't wear a toupee. I don't wear a toupee.
It's not journalism, it's entertainment. It's 58 million people who has got this video in their feed. 26 million people has watched this all through. And there is living 5 million in Norway, remember? So it's tenfold of the people living in our country who has watched, who has got the video in their feed. And it's important, if you are working with Facebook, is to understand that Facebook is giving advantage to video these days. This is the reach of ordinary posts to the left in dark blue and video posts to the right. And as you can see, if you are putting video into your feed, you are getting a much broader reach from Facebook than without. And we are trying to utilize that, especially since we, from the beginning, are a newspaper, a printed newspaper, and we can be a challenger in the video part of the business. So that's important to understand. The monthly engagement on Facebook is going down. Here you can see the figures from July last year to April this year, from top 10 publishers around the world. And the bigger the level of engagement you require from your reader, the lower the sort of interaction with your Facebook feed. And I think that's important to bear in mind as well. So when you publish on Facebook, I think you should bear in mind what type of material are you putting out there. Most of you probably had some really loyal readers that comes to your website or to your brand anyway, and the stuff they are reading you should not put out on Facebook. You should put out the material that could change from a competitor towards you. That might be. And some of the readers will be just tourists anyway. They will just occasionally see a link and whatever. But in my opinion, the media industry has a long way to go to understand how to relate to social media and the different platforms. And this is sort of something you should approach as scientifically as possible. Some words about the business model. This was the first web ad ever. Since then, the internet has been, like the universe, constantly expanding. And when something is constantly expanding, the price is going down. And in my opinion, going forward, we will have 3 possible revenue streams. We will have programmatic ad revenue, which is done by computers. You have to have native advertising, and you should try to get someone to pay. Because you will, in my opinion, to finance really expensive journalism, you need more revenue streams than just ad revenue. And we put a lot of energy these days into native advertising. It's give us a really healthy revenue stream. The majority of our ad revenue these days is digital. It's 80% of our revenue is digital, 20% from the printed newspaper. The total ad grow every year until 2014. We had a fallback in 2015, mostly because that Facebook and Google is eating into the market, as they do all over the world. But we are still really doing healthy margins. This is a slide that shows that in Norway, 27% are willing to pay for digital material, whereas in the Czech Republic, the same figures is 7%. So there is a big difference between our 2 countries there, but you really have to try to work on how to develop that part of the business to get a steady revenue stream. So let me show you how we tell a story about the oil crisis in a way appealing to the young ones. So you think that the teenagers will prefer this way to read about the oil crisis than an article with 10,000 characters? I think this is a modern way of utilizing the media, the mobile, the SMS sort of communication, just to make to tell a story in a new way. So I will conclude my presentation. I think we have to reinvent the one-size-fits-all approach to develop a personalized journalism. I think we have to totally integrate the newsroom with product and tech, because the competitors are really good when it comes to product and tech. And I think that we have to leave the old competitive worldview behind and unite as publishers. Our main competitors are in Silicon Valley, not next door in Prague. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If you can come in here, thank you, because we still do have time for several questions. Můžete se samozřejmě připojit prostřednictvím slajda. Vidím, že tady pár dotazů máme, takže ještě chvilku máme čas. Maybe I would like to start with the chapter of payments, because can you explain us how difficult it was or how difficult it is to convince people to pay for content? Because we see that it's really a big gap between your country and my country.
Yeah, I do not think that we have cracked the code by any way. We, at my newspaper these days, we have 90,000 purely digital subscribers. And I think there is three things when you should get people to pay. The first one is user experience. The number two is the user journey, how easy it should be to pay. And number three is content. But most editors think that content is the most important thing. But I think that the user experience and the user journey is even more important. There is abundance of content, but you have to really be able to make it easy for them to pay, and they have to get a feeling that it's worthwhile. And then you have to learn a lot of new words about churn and life expectancy of their subscribers and all that sort of things. We have not cracked the code, but we are working hard on it because we think it will be absolutely essential to survive in the future.
If you are talking about content, what can I say as a journalist? I can say that I observe how many media companies want to gain more viewers and readers by using tabloid information. What do you think about the strategy?
I think that you have to deliver quality journalism, but I think that you have to bear in mind that modern people, they are interested in a broad set of topics. They are interested in politics, but they are also interested in Kardashian. I mean, in every newspaper, in probably one of the most read stories in the top US newspapers the last 2 days might be the robbery of Kardashian in Paris, even if you are in the midst of the most spectacular presidential election as we have been on this planet Earth.
Okay, there are some questions from our audience, so let's go for them. How long has it taken to change the mind of your editorial staff to create such content instead of writing articles? Do you have any tips how to convince them?
Yeah, that's an ongoing process. I've been working full-time, more or less, with the digital transformation since year 2000. And when I became the publisher for the company 6 years ago, every day, if I'm at my office, I invite the whole staff to come to listen to my opinions for 15 minutes every day.
And how was it?
And I tell them, I think this one is good, this one should be done in another way. This is the development taking place in the marketplace, and by having this constantly communication with your staff, you are able to move mental positions, which is extremely important, because if I grew up working in a printed newspaper, and there is a lot of nostalgia around it, as it might be with linear TV. Linear TV will disappear, except for big events. I mean, I never watch any movie ever on linear TV anymore. I just do it on my Netflix account.
Okay.
So you really have to bear in mind that there is a shift going on, and you have to talk about it every day. That's the best advice I can give, every day.
Okay, and the last question could be, I would like to ask about the data, because if you can answer, what sort of data do you use to tailor the news for each user?
What data you use to tailor the news for each user? Yeah, I mean, we have Schibsted is a big media group who, apart from newspapers or news, also have a lot of classifieds and a lot of other things. And if we are able to congregate the data from the different entities, we are able to make profiles of where you're living, whether you're female or man, your age, and even your interests.
So you must have some special teams working just on
We are
it.
hiring people.
Okay.
We have, in Schibsted Group, we are 1,600 people working with product and tech.
Okay. Thank you very much for your answers, for your coming and your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Torry Pedersen.